o'clock on the dot, I think we'll go ahead and get started because there's a lot to pack in 1 hour. For those of you that just started trickling in, I'll share this with you again. I've put this presentation on a Google site. You can scan the QR code if you have a mobile device, or if you have your laptop with you, as many of you do, you can type in this shortened URL. This final character is an L. Looks like a 1, but it's an L. If for some reason you can't access the site or you don't have your device with you, you can let me know at the end and I'd be happy to email it to you. If either one of these happen not to work, you could type in the full URL up at the top.
Sorry, I'm late.
Come on in. And I just want to thank everybody for being here early on a Sunday morning and for sacrificing your typical Sunday morning activities. I know for a lot of people it wasn't easy to get here, but I'm so happy to see so many educators here to learn about coding in schools. This is something that I'm really passionate about. My name is Parrish. I'm an ITRT in the elementary schools in Goochland County, which is about 30 minutes west of Richmond. And this is my counterpart, B. Leiderman. She's the ITRT at the secondary level, and she's been using Scratch for far longer than I have, and has always been a resource for me. We'll be talking a little bit about Scratch today. I just want to get some information to see who it is that I'm addressing here today. Can you raise your hand if you're an elementary school person? Yay, good, okay, hands down. And how about if you're a secondary person? Middle school, high school? Okay, awesome, good. Okay, so it's about split. I'll be talking mostly about my experiences with elementary age students, but a lot of what I'm going to cover today, I think that you can easily apply at the secondary level as well, especially for those of us that are brand new to coding and teaching coding in schools. On the website, I went ahead and posted the description for this class just so that if you want to, you can read over it and make sure that you're in the right place, make sure that this is, in fact, a session for you. And I'd like to start with a Kahoot it just to survey the audience to get some information. I mentioned this a moment ago, but the information that I get from you will help me to know how I can adjust this presentation so that it's most beneficial for all of us. So if you would go to Kahoot it, I'll put up the directions. And you'll be asked a few questions. It's a survey.
You're connected to a different network. You're going a lot faster than we are.
Yeah, this is really, I lost the number too.
Okay, I'll put it back up there. I'm sorry, the game pin has joined. I had to relaunch it. It's 15896. And you can get there by going to your URL and typing in KAHOOT.IT.
Is there a certain nickname or we just put it in?
You should just put in this PIN number. When you go to Kahoot it, there should be a space for you.
Yeah, sure. It's for our name.
Okay.
Oh, you could put in a nickname or your name.
Okay.
Whatever you feel comfortable with, initials.
Okay.
If not everybody can join, that's totally fine, as long as I can get just a good feel for the majority of people in here.
Not calling out the first question.
I think it finishes this countdown and then they start to pop up. Yeah, I put a timer on this thinking, oh, it'll be great. Well, I'll start it and get through each question, but then I should have done it so that you can just answer the questions as you log in. Okay, so the question should start.
Keeps jumping around.
It
Every time
does.
somebody joins, I think it adds more time.
Yeah, adds a little bit more time. 23, 24.
Is
this a new site? I've never used Kahoot. Is it fairly new?
I started using it last year. In our district, we are moving one-to-one, and this worked beautifully on the iPads that we had. So just in working with small groups of kids, it's free to join. It's really easy to create questions. I think he uses it at the secondary level. You are limited by the number of characters that you can enter to your question. So last year I had a great idea. I was going to do the multi-step word problems with 4th and 5th graders that they have to know how to do, but those things are paragraphs long. That didn't work. But you can enter in very short questions. I can't remember how many characters you get, but it's reminiscent of Twitter.
Can you use these on Chromebooks?
Yes.
It's web-based, it works on
Okay, so the first question is, I have been to code.org.
We need the pin again.
Well, don't worry about joining. We'll just go ahead and, for those that could get into it, we'll click through it.
So we don't get to see the question. The color, yeah.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the question to follow too. Does it always deliver one at a time?
In your settings, I believe it does, but you can adjust in your settings just like you can adjust the time. Okay? I've used the teacher dashboard on code.org, so that's if you have been to code.org. On this site, you can also adjust the time limit that's allowed for each question. I just went with the default 30 seconds for each one. And then it will show us the results. Okay. Next question, I've heard of the hour of code.
You're not going to switch symbols on somewhere.
No. All the answers are yes and
As soon as
no.
I see it, I'm like, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't see that.
Are those the only kind of questions you can put on here, yes and no, or you can put others?
You can do quiz questions as well. You can add more answers to this as well. I just did 2. I'm not sure what the max is, but you can keep clicking add response. So for the survey questions, you can add more than just yes or no, true or false. Good. That's really good. I've participated in the hour of code. That's the next question.
Well, about to, it's next week, isn't it?
It is. It's this
late
week.
now.
Yes. Big week.
So why are we here?
I think
instead
it's
of
so
there?
ironic that we're all here, and it's Computer Science and Education Week. Yes, I
Hit
agree.
the ground running when we get to this. Going to.
But we'll still have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for Hour of Code. You can actually do Hour of Code anytime you want. It doesn't have to be this week. Okay? I teach coding in my school. That's the next question. Okay? Nice. 13, very good. I've used Scratch myself. The software made up at MIT for kids to learn basics of coding. Nice. I've used Scratch with students. Okay. I've used another coding tutorial / program with students. So anything that introduces your students to coding,
Including code.org.
including code.org, including Scratch, any software that you've maybe used with students. Yep. I want to promote and teach more coding in my school/district. Maybe you don't know yet, but hopefully by the end of this you will. Yay! Awesome, very good. Okay, that's really helpful. It looks to me like we have a wide range of people here with experiences with code. I do want to start just by very quickly telling you my story, share my experiences of how I got started using code in my career and with my students. About 10 years ago, I first started teaching, and just as most typical first-year teachers, I wanted to do anything and everything to make sure that my kids were learning and engaged. We have access to technology in our classrooms in Goochland. We have for quite some time. And I very quickly found out that any type of technology I could integrate into my lessons made the students connect and engage and helped them to hone in on what it was that I was teaching. It really didn't matter what it was. Game websites, having the students make iMovies, keynotes, if I played a video, it didn't matter. Any kind of technology I used in my classroom helped to engage my students a little bit more. I then started to learn as much as I could about the available technology that we had for our students. I started taking as many after-school classes as I could. I started meeting with our supervisor of instructional technology, John Hendren, to find out what I could do. And I remember that first year, he was telling me about this program called Scratch. And he was saying, it's amazing, it's something you have to try. It's going to introduce your students to fundamentals about computer programming. And at that time, I knew absolutely nothing about computer programming. I grew up knowing nothing about computer programming. As far as I knew, computer programming was a skill set reserved for the really smart people that sat in a room, isolated, staring at a black computer screen with green ones and zeros popping up and entering patterns all day. That's really what I thought it was. So I very quickly wrote him off. I've since learned John's always right. But I continued trying to learn as much as I could, not using computer programming with kids. John, on the other hand, pushed Scratch year after year. He taught after-school classes. He taught some after-school classes. He taught summer sessions on how to use Scratch with kids. And I still thought, I don't think that's for me. I'm already maxed out to the limit with my instructional time. I can't even fully cover successful mastery of the SOLs with my students. Why would I bring in just one more thing? I just didn't get it. It wasn't until a few years later when a pair of boys in my class came to me and I had assigned a project where the final product had to be something multimedia. And they said, our older brothers have used Scratch and they showed us how to do it. We want to make a Scratch project for our multimedia thing. And I said, sure, go for it. And then prayed that they would not ask me any questions or ask me to help them in any way, which fortunately they didn't. I think they could see the fear in my eyes, knowing I'm the teacher and I don't know how to help these boys here in class. They fortunately went to their brothers again for any questions that they had. And they came back on presentation day with their finished Scratch product, showed it to the class, and then it was that whole if you give a mouse a cookie theory thing that happened. Once all the other kids saw it, they wanted to do it. And that's when I really thought, uh-oh, this is something. This is something I'm going to have to look into. Not only that, but I was totally blown away by what the boys made. And this was at a time when there weren't as many web apps for creating videos and animations. And here they come in with a fully animated mini film reteaching the concept that they had been assigned for their project. So I thought, okay, the kids want to do this. I've seen what kids can do. I need to start looking into it. But I still wasn't convinced that I should take my class time to do it because, again, we all know how precious instructional time is. And I thought, I can't take the time to be teaching computer programming when I'm still teaching these kids how to read. So we're fortunate out in Goochland in that each of the elementary schools host these after-school enrichment courses. And teachers and parents can sign up to teach them. It's 1 month long, 1 day a week, so you're only teaching 4 sessions. So I thought this would be the perfect place to start trying Scratch with students. I also, during that time, started researching teaching coding to students. And I was amazed by what I was reading and the benefits that teaching coding had for kids. And then I realized John was very right. Maybe I should have been trying this from the get-go. So I wrote my description for my after-school enrichment course, thinking this totally has to motivate me to get on top of it. I now need to figure out exactly what I'm going to do. And I had the maximum number of kids sign up for the course, 15 kids, but I still didn't know how to use Scratch much myself. I had looked at it and thought, this is kind of beyond me. I'm not a programming type person. But fortunately, in doing research, I found so many resources online to help me. I didn't have to be an expert with Scratch. I didn't have to know more than what the kids were going to know. And I found a resource that I have posted on the website that I'll share with you guys in just a little bit. It's actually a pre-made PowerPoint that teaches students how to build a very basic video game. And we just walked through those slides every Tuesday until the kids had created each the exact same video game, a little baby that the user controls moving back and forth, catching a ball, and scoring points. And even though they had all created the exact same game, I couldn't believe how excited they were. They were so excited to be coming in and sitting down and building their game each week. Yes?
What grade level I know you teach elementary, but what grades were you doing this?
I had opened this up to 4th and 5th grade. I was nervous to go any younger than that at that time. Thought, okay, I'll start with the older kids that I know will be able to follow these directions.
Right, because I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th, so maybe I can try this with 6th. That's why I was
Oh yeah, definitely. You could definitely. These had a lot of experience using Scratch with middle school and high school too.
Actually, I've been to the Scratch conference twice in Boston, and Scratch was originally created for the target age was 8 years old.
Wow, really?
So, yes. When you look at the statistics on Scratch and you look at who the people who are on there creating the most stuff are, you will have, it ramps up, it starts so early that you can't even believe it, but they have graduate students who are monitoring the website and they know that this is really the case. The great thing about Scratch is that it was made as a research project of sorts because they collect data about this all the time out of the Scratch website. So you start seeing things ramp up at age 4, it peaks at about age 13. Then it drops off a lot. Then the funny thing is it picks up around age 18, 19.
How does Scratch compare to code.org? I have seen where they designed the Angry Bird.
We'll take a look at a bunch of the different
I'd like to see a
resources.
comparison of the two because I've used code.org as
Right.
enrichment. But
Scratch is very easy for all ages and all levels of literacy even, because it is made for kids who are just emerging readers. So anybody can use it, and it teaches it in a way that is very easy to follow at any level. And so if you're worried about middle schoolers, any middle schooler can do it, and you can even change the language of the website to help English language learners learn the concepts in their own language.
okay, so you have a Spanish?
Yes.
Mhm.
Arabic.
Scratch is an amazing tool. And I've got some resources to help get anybody started that hasn't started with Scratch. It's all web-based. You can get to it from Chromebooks or you have your Apple MacBooks. So from that first after-school enrichment class where I saw how the kids felt about this, and not only that, but in just 4 sessions, we had covered so much math. Coordinate planes, angles, addition and subtraction, multiplication, the list goes on. We had covered so much math in those 4 days. Things that probably weren't exactly in line with the pacing guide. I don't know if all the kids had covered it at that time, But we were covering it there, and they got it. They understood the coordinates and how to move their sprite to where it needed to be, X and Y coordinates and whatnot. So from that point, I knew that that was something that I needed to start spreading to as many kids as I possibly could. When I realized how they felt about it, what they could learn from it, and what they would be creating from it. And not too long after, I became an ITRT in the county. And since then, I have been able to get into all the elementary schools to introduce coding concepts, not always using Scratch, sometimes using some of the other resources that I'm going to share with you today. But I continued from that year the after-school enrichment programs for each session that we had, and eventually teachers started hearing about it too and seeing what their kids made. Because other than running home and showing their parents what they made, the next person that they wanted to show the next day was their teacher and their classmates. So then I had teachers, not many at first, but it's starting to pick up some, coming to me and saying, would there be a way we could do that in my enrichment block or do that for a couple math lessons? And there was, it turned out. So we've been doing after-school coding clubs with kids, and we've started now integrating it into classrooms. I've just been doing it at the elementary level, now from 2nd grade through to 5th grade. So that's my experience with it, and I'm very passionate about it. I really love it. I have a tab here on the website that says, Why Teach Coding? And I want to talk a little bit about the facts, why it's important to be teaching coding to our kids. I do think it's something that's hard to grasp because it's not an SOL. It's not a part of teaching reading explicitly. But there are so many other reasons. I have a video that I want to play. This is a TED Talk. I've linked to it up at the top. This is Mitch Resnick. Have you met Mitch? I randomly met him at VSTE one year, and I didn't even know who it was until I talked to B and John afterwards. But he is the director of the Lifelong Learning Media Lab. Is that correct? Lifelong Kindergarten Group up at MIT. They are the group that developed Scratch. I'm not going to play this whole thing. It's about 18 minutes long. It's there for you if you want to go back and watch it. It's a wonderful presentation. But there's a part of this just at about 3 minutes and 50 seconds that I'd like to skip to. If it will load, if it will let me.
So how do I get to this site? Is it the...
If you'd like, I can email it to you after this presentation.
Okay.
And then you'll have all the resources there. This is also a TED Talk, so if you guys just were to Google Mitch Resnick TED Talk, it would come up. Let me scroll ahead to about 350. While it's loading, you can take a look at some of the other quotes I have. Oh, here we go.
For young people.
I might just hit pause and let that load for a second. But I have a quote just to the side of it from the creator of code.org. Whether you're trying to make a lot of money or whether you just want to change the world, computer programming is an incredibly empowering skill to learn. And that's one thing I see every single time I do this with students. The ability to literally be able to make something from scratch is so empowering for these kids. Not only can they make things to entertain themselves and their friends, their peers, but they can make tutorials to share with their classmates or with students in other schools. And that's actually how I hooked teachers into wanting to do it by saying, look at all the benefits that the kids are going to get just by doing this, and the end result will be that you will have tutorials for the other students to go back and watch, and you can share these tutorials with the other teachers as well, especially like in 5th grade science, because those kids are tested on the 5th grade SOLs and the 4th grade SOLs, so those teachers love being able to go in and make all the videos for 4th grade science and then sending them down to the 4th grade teachers.
Referred to as digital natives. But actually, I'm sort of skeptical about this term. I'm not so sure we should be thinking of young people as digital natives. When you really look at it, how is it that young people spend most of their time using new technologies? You often see them in situations like this or like this. And there's no doubt that young people are very comfortable and familiar browsing and chatting and texting and gaming, but that doesn't really make you fluent. So young people today have lots of experience and lots of familiarity with interacting with new technologies, but a lot less so of creating with new technologies and expressing themselves with new technologies. It's almost as if they can read but not write with new technologies. And I'm really interested in seeing how can we help young people become fluent so they can write with new technologies. And that really means that they need to be able to write their own computer programs or code. So increasingly, people are starting to recognize the importance of learning to code. In recent years, there have been hundreds of new organizations and websites that are helping young people learn to code. You look online, you'll see places like Code Academy and events like Code Dojo.
I'm going to go ahead and hit pause there. If at some point you go back and watch the video, that'd be wonderful. I highly recommend it. He made so many good points in this 18-minute TED Talk about why you should be teaching coding. But I thought that introduction that he's making about how we are always saying, kids are digital natives, they just understand how to use this stuff. That it's true, but do they know how to manipulate, create, and change these programs that are a part of everyday life? Not so much. They can be users. We need to help to make them creators. I have some statistics here. All statistics were taken from code.org about why you should be teaching computer programming starting at a young age. I love this infographic right here. This is something that we've seen a lot. I feel like all of a sudden you hear people talking about coding and education, and it's wonderful. And this is an infographic that helps to hit it home. Computer science is a top-paying college degree, and computer programming jobs are growing at 2 times the national average. They have, the U.S. Bureau of Labor has estimated that by the year 2020, there are going to be 1 million more computing jobs, computer science and coding type jobs, than there will be people able to fill them. Good paying jobs for people to have. So that shows us that we're not quite yet developing the workforce for that we need to be. I've got a few other points here. When students are coding, they're using critical thinking and problem solving. Literally every single step of the way, they are using critical thinking and problem solving to debug programs, to figure out how to get their sprite to move from one place to another. Students can use the skills that they learn in different subject areas to create learning programs. And as I mentioned a moment ago, that's how I tend to try to hook teachers into getting them to carving out instructional time for this. It also can help to pique student interest in other areas of computer science. Coding isn't the only area of computer science that we need students learning about and going to school for. So this can be a diving board for them to start looking into other areas. As I mentioned, when John first mentioned Scratch and computer programming to me, I knew nothing about it. And I think it's important for kids to at least know something about it before they leave high school, so that they can decide if that's something that they want to pursue in college or a certificate type program as well. Yes. I'm sorry? Oh yeah, go for it.
The other thing that sometimes, if you're here, it's because you believe in this and you want to do this at some point. But when you take this back to your schools, there's a very important point that you need to make to the teachers who look at you and say, well, what if my kids don't want to be computer scientists? And I know we all get that. Well, what if my kids don't like it? Or when, you go to a kid and say, oh, today we're going to learn to program a game, and they go, well, I don't want to do that because I want to be a fashion model. So how do you bring them along? You say, you learn to do this. If you know you can do this, you know you can do anything. Because the soft skills that they're learning, in addition to the important, computer science knowledge and math skills that they're learning, what they're learning is persistence. They're learning to go back and try again. And you're doing it in an environment where it doesn't hurt to fail, because you're going to fail and you're going to have to debug. Debugging is a natural process. So you're teaching them that when you fall down, you get back up and try again. And you tell the kids and you tell the teachers. And especially the teachers who say, well, that's not for me, I can't do it. First of all, you can say, well, yes, you can do it. If 8-year-olds can do it, you can do it. And you yourself as a teacher need to model what you complain that your kids don't have when you tell them that your kids can't do this. So if you want your kids to do it, you have to model it yourself. So you learn all those soft skills that are not measured. You try, you can't do it, then you give up, you walk away. Well, that's no good. You have to try, do it again, turn around and ask for help. Collaboration.
And I'm so glad that Bea mentioned persistence. The most recent teacher that I've gotten on board with this is a second grade teacher. And we were talking and she said, I have the cutest group of kids, but they're poking me and raising their hands at every step of the way. They haven't quite learned yet how to try to work through things themselves. And I said, well, maybe we could try some of the programs on code.org because they have to work through these issues themselves. If they get it wrong, they need to go back and figure out exactly where did they get it wrong. And they can't be coming to the teacher for every one of those questions. So we started doing that with those students to help teach critical thinking and problem solving and persistence, to help to instill those skills with those second graders. I pulled this quote actually from Mitch Resnick's talk, or not quote, but fact. At first, students will learn to code, but very quickly they will be coding to learn. So as I've already mentioned, creating programs that can help others to learn school content. Students learn math skills. I didn't list them out because there are so many of them. This last fact I find the most interesting, and I heard this at a recent workshop that I went to with Kat in the back. We were at a Virginia Code.org workshop on a Saturday afternoon. But they said that they piloted Code.org programs with a second grade class in inner city Richmond. And this one second grade class was a part of a greater second grade team where the classroom statistics were the same. Teachers shared lessons and co-taught. They were teaching the same lessons. It was a team of teachers that had taught together for a long time. And at the end of the year, this one class that had been using Code.org a little bit each day had a 20% gain in their reading grade. Reading. And they all sat down as a team and said, for years, we've had similar scores in all of our classrooms. So why is it that we see this spike this year? And the teacher said, the only thing that I'm doing different is using Code.org every day. And she said, I knew that it would help with students' math and science understanding. I had no idea it would help with language skills. And they think that happened because the kids they're being given text directions a little bit with each puzzle that they do. It's not intense reading. The higher that you go up in the Code.org levels, the more text-based instruction you have. But these students who were reluctant readers or maybe coming from a background where they weren't reading on their own as much, they were reading every single day, participating in these puzzles, not even thinking or knowing that they were reading. But they think that's what caused the spike in reading scores. I have a few. Oh, sorry.
So every day they were doing Code.org puzzles?
Well, the teacher said she tried to fit it in for 20 minutes every day, but you know how that goes. And I don't know this teacher. This was just what they were sharing with us at the workshop. But they said they were doing some form of coding most days. So either the Code.org puzzles or some of the unplugged activities that they were working on. I have a few other graphics up here that just go to show the importance of teaching coding even further, I think. There are so many more computing jobs out there as compared to the number of students going through computer science type programs. We've already talked about that. Why are the numbers so bad? It's because there aren't many places teaching computer science. And actually, from doing my research, I found that those numbers have gone down in recent years. There are not as many high schools teaching computer science as there used to be. That surprised me.
I had heard on that one through some literature I read on the Computer Science Teachers Association site that the problem is a lot of kids just aren't signing up for it. And that's why a lot of schools aren't offering it. So, you know, I think that's part of the reason code.org is out there, to get people more interested in it so they would share it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe students just don't realize what they will be capable of doing as they learn more and more about computer science and computer science
Sometimes
classes.
that kids just look at it, it's going to be too hard for them.
True.
Especially
Like
if
I
they're
did.
struggling with math.
I looked at Scratch and thought that would be too hard for me at some point. Yes, sir.
Since we're running out of time, can you tell us how you started the Scratch program? Because that's what I'd like to do.
Yes, I can. I'll go through how we started that. Got another quote there. I'm going to scroll back up to the top, though. I have another tab called Getting Started. It's going to be different for everybody based on what level you teach, based on the school environment where you work. But I put some notes here that I use to guide my thinking each time I start up a new after-school club at one of the schools, or as I'm thinking of going to a teacher to say, hey, we could try this with your kids. Step one is really just deciding where and when you want to start with this. So, do you work in a school that will host the program? If not, you maybe want to gather some resources. Find one teacher who's always willing to try something new or different, or talk to your administrator about doing an after-school club. I had to start with after-school clubs because I didn't want to take my instructional time. I know how teachers feel. But by starting with after-school clubs, people saw what was possible, and now we're able to move it into curriculum a little bit more. So the next one I think is really important. Is there a specific group of target students? You might want to pick the age group, or if you want to do a club with just girls, figure out who you want to do this club with, or which grade level, which subject, which teacher you want to go to. Plan the location and the meeting dates and times. If I'm working with a teacher, we just find it, how can our schedule sync up? At what point in your day can you bring this into your curriculum? How long will the program last? I will say that first enrichment program I did only went to 4 weeks, but since then, every program I've started, the kids have asked if they can continue coming, and they've run the length of the year. And the kids come the length of the year. And they return the next year to be in the coding group again, the coding club. And then what's the start date? So sort of list out your logistics. How are you going to make it work in your school? Step 2, get support from the school and community. You may want to talk to your administrators to see if the program is feasible. Share with them some of the resources from code.org and some of the resources that I have here on this site to get them hooked into seeing the importance of teaching coding to our students. And then talk to any teachers or community members that would help you. So this year I have a teacher who was interested in coming to see the after-school coding clubs, and she's now helping me to teach them. She's a reading specialist. She knows nothing about computer programming, but she's actually running the club Tuesday when I'm here. Because the fact is, I still don't know a lot about computer programming. If you were to ask me, I would have to send you to Google. But there are so many resources online that I can use to help my kids. And I will also say, the kids in my after-school coding programs know far more than I know. Because what I'll do is I'll figure out what resource or tutorial I want to use. I'll survey a few different ones, figure out which one will be best for the students that I've kind of targeted to work with, and I'll go through the first few courses just to make sure it's something that they can do. Then after that, they start and they go far beyond any level that I did. Last year we used Khan Academy. They have a tutorial that teaches kids JavaScript, and I did the first set of them. And then by the end of the year, these kids were making apps with buttons and multiple screens, and they kept coming to me for help. And then we talked about, well, what are some good Google search phrases, or how can we use the community online to post these questions? I can't answer their questions always, but I know how to facilitate and to be there to help them. Yes, ma'am?
Did you have your computer specialist come in and bring software for the lab? And then how do the kids save their readings? Where are you having them save them to? And then are you allowing them to open up their own accounts on Scratch?
That's a good question. Do you mind if I cover that in just about 5 minutes?
No problem.
We'll get to that. Those are really good questions, though. So we'll have to talk about the setup as well. How do you get this set up? How do you get it started? I always send home a permission slip because a lot of these sites do require a username. Code.org does, if you're 13 and under, so I always send home a permission slip. Scratch is web-based, and the kids can create usernames, so I also send home a permission slip for that as well. I've never had an issue with parents being upset about these usernames being created. I try to encourage parents and share with them that there's not private information being shared here. We can even enter information that's not identifiable with your child, if that makes them feel better. But I've never had a major problem in getting permission to allow students to set up usernames for these sites. Once you've sent home the permission slips, setting up your first group meeting, I do very explicitly plan out what I'm going to cover the first group meeting always, sometimes the first couple, because I find that I want to use the videos from code.org, the inspirational ones, which since most people here have been to code.org, I'm not going to play them, but I have the 5-minute example one here on the site if you haven't seen it. These videos are awesome, and the kids love them. And these videos are meant to encourage students to want to be coders, to want to participate in these programs, and they do just that. After kids watch these videos, they're really excited about starting with coding. If you click the link that's right above this video, it'll take you to the code.org site that has lots of videos listed. So I try to start the first session with some of these videos, and then...
Are all these videos embedded in the program itself?
A lot of them are,
Okay.
but sometimes I go through and I pick exactly which ones I want to show. So now on code.org, they have actually a frozen module, and that's for a lot of my younger students, that's just a little too complex, but I like the video that program starts with. So I'll take that video, play it for the kids. And then code.org especially has lots of videos embedded with it. I just have the kids bring headphones and they watch that as they're working through them. But I try to target a couple videos that I think will most get at whatever target group it is I'm working with at that time. So planning the first group meeting. And then just really quickly, Hour of Code is taking place this week, and we were laughing at the beginning of the session how it's ironic that we're all here, and this is Computer Science and Education Week. But you could do this Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, have your kids participate in the Hour of Code. And I will be very honest, I have not been able to participate in the Hour of Code during the actual week ever. This is too close to Christmas in elementary schools, too close to winter break to be bringing in too much extra stuff. All the teachers are wrapping up projects.
I was going to do it right after we got back.
That'd be perfect. You can do it anytime you want.
Get through that January zone.
There's also one more thing, but then it also gets a little late because it's close to the end of school and testing. Usually there's a national scratch day or actually scratch day. I don't know if it's national or international, probably international. So scratch days are usually in May. So if you go to the scratch website, you can find out when the scratch day is. And that's a day when everybody does scratch. It's usually on a Saturday. So it's a little hard to get kids in when it's a Saturday, but you can encourage kids to participate at home and share with you what they're doing since it's web-based and they can do it from anywhere.
One thing I love about code.org, Hour of Code, is that no matter when you do it, no matter when your students finish it, and it usually takes mine longer than an hour, but no matter when they finish it, they get a certificate where they can type in their own name and print it out. So whether you do it this week, in January, in February, or as a summer session for students, or summer school, you can do it anytime and you get the certificate.
Break it up, so like for instance, my time frame is only 45 minutes for my class.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, you definitely can. If the kids create usernames.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on from getting started. If you have any questions about that, we can chat at the end. But I want to go ahead and click on resources. There are so many resources out there to help teachers teach coding, and especially teachers like me who really know nothing about it other than knowing how to bring a group of kids together and getting them excited about something and knowing how to facilitate the learning process and helping kids when they hit those bumps. So I have a table of contents up here. You guys can click on any one of these links and it will bring you down here to these resources. But I started off with sites that teach coding. There are so many good ones. And I don't use the same one every time. Because for one reason, I like to try different things to see really what's going to affect kids differently. And not every group of students that I work with is the same. So sometimes I need something that's a little less complex. Sometimes I need something that's more challenging for a certain group of students that I'm working with. If I start with something that's too simple, the kids let me know. I can tell that they're ready for a more complex activity, like starting to scratch. For my age students, I try to start with code.org, because for me, code.org is the easiest place to start, hands down. I know most people have been to code.org. I'm going to go ahead and just click on the link to it. One of the things that I love about code.org is that they have different modules set up for all age levels. I haven't done this with any students below 2nd grade, but they have a module for students that aren't reading yet. And it starts with drag and drop. And that's actually where I start the 2nd grade students that I work with, just because I feel like that levels the playing field. A lot of the students that I work with come from homes, and you don't know if there's internet or computers or what they're used to using. Yes, sir.
You haven't done it below 2nd grade. I've done it with kindergarten. It works perfectly.
Nice.
It's the course 1 with code.org. It's course 1, 2, and 3. I have 3 kindergarten classes that have done it twice. I have 1st through 5th that have done it about 7 times since the school year started. We do it about once a month. My kindergarten students that have done it twice have gone into what the 7th stage. There's about 20 or so in course 1, and they've gone through the 7th stage in the 2 sessions that they're doing it. And I have students in those classes that don't even know their letters yet.
Wow. It's
So
really,
it's
incredible.
definitely something that kindergartners can do.
And I want to piggyback on that. I'm sure this is how you set your classes up too. For younger students, you can create their usernames. You create the class, and you're given a link for the students to click on. So however you get your kids to click on links. Maybe you have a teacher or a parent that goes into the lab and pulls it up for the really young students ahead of time. But when the students click on the link, they see their names. They don't have to type in a username. They click on their name, and then they have to pick their secret picture.
Cool.
And code.org gives you a printout with the student's secret picture.
You put them on
Yeah.
sticks or whatever.
Yeah. The kids can keep that with them. Is that how you use it with your
I print them out. They're on the computers when they come in, before they come in, because my kindergartners have assigned seats.
Mhm.
They know where to sit. After the 2nd month of coming in, they finally remember.
Yeah.
3rd month or come along. And they sit down, they see their card. I use a classroom management system, so I just throw the link up on every screen. So they don't have to do anything. They walk in, they click on the name, click on the picture, and now my 1st graders are actually remembering their picture, where in December we started in August. So even my 1st graders don't even need the cards now.
It's wonderful. They've really thought through just about everything. There are also lessons available. If you log into code.org as a teacher and set up a class, I don't know if I'll be signed in when I click into it, but they have lessons to get you started. Lessons that don't involve computers at all. So lessons where you're getting the kids up and moving and working together, they're called unplugged activities. And they're all really fun. I'm just going to click. This is what the login screen looks like. Our kids have Google accounts.
Yeah, we all have them too.
Yeah, 3rd grade and up. So I just make sure that they have permission from those students' parents, and then they just click on their, they click on sign in with Google. Now, let's see if I can, here we go. Actually, I should just be able to click sign in with Google and it will go. Oh, I know why. Because I'm in a different Google. Yeah. With kids 3rd grade and up, they just type in code.org. And after the first time of typing that in, they seem to get it. I was going to take you all into my teacher dashboard to take a look at it, but we are running out of time. It does not take long at all to log in as a teacher and even set up a fake practice class. You can monitor the progress of all of your students. You can see if they've skipped puzzles. We have 10 minutes left.
So this is something that you can have your students come in, sit down, log in independently. You don't have to get them all
Yes.
started on.
And it's all web-based. Oh, so here, this is the teacher dashboard. Lesson plans and resources, professional development opportunities. You can link up guest speakers. Okay, so here, these are the second graders. The little ball slides and shows you at what point. This is the group of second graders that we just started with. You can see where they all are, which is nice for being able to monitor. Yeah. Okay, moving on down to Scratch. I've linked up the word Scratch to the site for Scratch. It's all web-based. So if this is something you decide you want to do, just make sure that your kids have access to the internet. Computer and the internet, that's all they need. Even if you do not have a computer for every student, there's a lot of research behind partnering kids up and doing shared coding. So have one student work on something for 5 minutes, set a timer, and then they switch. And then the other one takes control. But the whole time they're communicating and they're talking and they're helping one another. So you don't need to have a device or a computer for every single student to do these things. It's not even something that you have to do every single day. With my 5th graders, we're supposed to do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but we typically only end up doing it 2 out of those 3 days just because so many other things are coming up all the time for them. Down here, I've posted a lot of the resources that have helped me in the past. Again, I'm not a Scratch expert. I am learning as I'm learning to help students. So I've posted many of the lessons that I've used, including the one that has the PowerPoint that I first used to walk kids through step by step what they needed to do. I also have 6 challenges for beginners up here. There's an hour of code tutorial. Now all of these other coding programs are starting to create hour of code tutorials. So you don't have to use just code.org. That's just the one I recommend because I think it's the easiest for teachers and students to use, and they have so many resources on the site. They even have pamphlets and handouts that you can give to teachers and administrators and parents to show them all of the benefits of teaching computer coding to students. Does anybody have any questions about Scratch? Somebody asked what it looks like and how is it compared to code.org. If you've seen code.org, you know that they use that language that looks like Blockly. You're moving the blocks over and plugging them together. Scratch looks a lot more like that. I've mentioned this one time before. I'll say it again. I really think it's easier to start on code.org and use that as an introduction for all groups that are brand new to it, then move into one of the other programs.
I started with Scratch and I had to go back to code.org. It was too
Did
much
you?
fun. They're like, they just want to look at the pictures and the little sound clip. And like, oh.
Yeah. Last year when I did Khan Academy with the JavaScript stuff, I had a mixed group. I had some kids that had done Scratch, some kids that had no experience with anything. In the end, they all learned it, but that was tricky. Looking back, I wish I had started with code.org and then maybe done a week or 2 of Scratch, then moved into the Khan Academy. But that said, it can be done. The kids loved the Khan Academy tutorials and learning JavaScript, and they never learned how to do much more other than what I was describing earlier, creating the different scenes and the buttons, and we were calling them apps. There were a couple kids that were very beginners, and they didn't get quite as far. They created their graphics and had them animated a little bit. One student made a French pig and animated it. It was really funny. I've linked up another site here called Blockly Games. These are really fun. These are games that I would say 4th grade and up can play. They're free. Made with code. If anybody logged into Google this past week, you may have seen this link up here. This is a new resource created by Google, and it was created to encourage girls to get involved with coding. The resources here are really good, and I don't think it's something that just girls would like. So I also mentioned the reading specialist that's now helping me with some of my after-school clubs. She's going to use some of the activities here with all the kids on Tuesday. There's one activity where students can program lights on a Christmas tree in New York City. There's another program where kids can make holiday cards.
So what grade level would you think?
I have 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in that group. She's going to use it with them. And so 3rd grade and up. It looks like the site was made to target girls probably in middle school. There are lots of resources on there for girls. If you get on, you click, they even have this really neat resource that I want to try at one of the schools, but it's called a coding party. And you bring a bunch of girls in for the night and have a coding party, and it's something that you would do after school, 3 hours long, but you're not even using computers really. You're just introducing them to computer programming. Code Avengers, I had a student use this last year and he really liked it. They've changed it up a lot though since last year, but that's fun to look around on. Khan Academy I've already talked a lot about. It walks the kids through learning JavaScript. Tinker is a great resource on here. You can start using it for free and then you can pay a little bit more to have access to the really good stuff. So again, my go-to over this is code.org, but the resources available on Tinker are incredible. Tinkersmith has some downloadable lesson plans you can download to introduce coding to. This is for older students, middle school, high school. And then GameStar Mechanic, this is really fun. It uses fun game-based quests and courses to help students learn game design. I've also put a list here of a bunch of different apps that I've used with elementary school students. And actually with these apps, I rarely ever do an introduction where I say, click this, click that, do this. The apps are available, they open them up, they start to play with them, and they figure it out. Most of these apps, though, I would say are more for younger students. Have you used any of these with the older ones?
No. Well, the 6th graders that came up from the 5th grade classes, we piloted a one-to-one iPad program in Goochland last year, and we had one elementary school with iPads. The 5th graders who came into the 6th grade have iPads, and now all the 6th graders have iPads. So about a third have had iPads for a year now, and now they're with kids who are new to the program. And one of the things that they all want to do is make things using Scratch Junior, which runs on the iPads. And it's really fun to walk into a classroom and they have a little bit of downtime. Something happened, the teacher had to do something, and some things are done, and some kids are still working. And it's great to walk in and find the kids teaching each other how to do stuff in Scratch Junior. So, it's great that after a year, they feel confident enough that they're teaching the other kids in their classrooms, and that the kids are actually wanting to do that rather than complaining that they want to see games on their iPad.
And that's actually another thing I'll say as well. Once students start learning and discovering things themselves, I'll have them teach a 10-minute lesson the next time we meet. Cargo Bot is one that older kids I think would really like. That's challenging.
It's a little more complicated.
Yeah. I have teacher information and resources here. Virginia Code offers free workshops for teachers. That's one that Kat and I went to. We'd be happy to tell you about that if you're interested. And then there's some other resources here. Black Girls Code, Girls Who Code, and then there's an infographic with fun facts about coding. I've posted some blogs and articles about teaching coding. If you're interested in trying to get administrators on board, it wouldn't be a bad idea to send them some of these articles. And then I've linked up some videos. So there's the Made with Code film. I talked about how Google has put together this wonderful resource. They also made a film that's linked up here. Tips for teaching, just really quickly. I think these are important. These are things that I've learned through experience. You're going to want to take a look at a few different resources. So look at Scratch, look at code.org, look at Tinker. Look at 2 to 3 and decide which one you think will be best for that target group of kids that you've picked to start coding with. Decide if you're going to teach the tutorials, as I did my very first time, or if you're just going to teach mini lessons as needed, or if you want to just let the students self-discover and teach one another, that works as well. I find with things like Scratch, if it's their first time, I need to do some introduction. And I use the resources posted on the resource page on this site to do that.
So Zoe,
Yes.
another use up there, what I've done is I haven't actually had a structured time for this, but in every class, you have some students that are way ahead, especially when I teach keyboarding, they type like 50 words a minute, and others are typing 20.
Yeah.
And so it really comes in handy also for enrichment, where those that are done with their work, at least they have something to do.
Yes,
So-
that's awesome. One of the things here I put is that try to keep the environment unstructured at times so students can be really creative in what they're programming and coding. And then one thing that I found is so important is to let kids share frequently. Even if it's just code.org, have them share the puzzle that they just finished. You can have them plug the projector into their computer, but it's really important for them to share. It's also important to partner kids up sometimes, and don't always put the high student that knows how to do all of it with the student that's never done it before. Sometimes let the two students that have the most experience work together. It's good to mix it up if you're going to do partners. And then really quickly, and I'm sorry that I could probably talk about this forever, but I'm happy to talk with anybody afterwards, or if you want to email me, I have my email address up here. But I just wanted to show you some of the things that students said after coming to Coding Club. Coding Club was awesome today. I'm so glad I joined. Also today, I just got my certificate for the hour of code, and I'm moving to Scratch. Coding Club is awesome. I'm excited, and I can't wait for the next visit. This was an email from a parent. Hi, Ms. Parrish. I just wanted to drop you a quick note to let you know how it went at yesterday's first coding enrichment class, at least according to Gage. This is how it went down when I picked him up. Me. So how was it? Gage. Oh my God, Mom, I wish I could stay until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I don't want it to be just 4 weeks long. Me. What? Gage. Mom, this was the funnest, most best class ever. Can I go home and go on the computer to coding.org? Please, 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 I'll do anything. So this was a class where I played one of the inspirational videos, we talked about what computer programming was, and they got on code.org. And that was it. So I didn't have to have a lot of knowledge or experience or anything, and the kids loved it. And I feel like it's that way every time I use these resources. Does anybody have any questions? Or feel free to come up and ask us at the end, or email us for more direct advice. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.